Krisa, we're good.
Okay. Good morning and welcome. I'm Krisa with the Graham Chamber of Commerce. And today we have brought in two experts with us. We have Dr. Kerri Bates and Bryan Ray here, and they are with Graham Psychological Associates. And they are going to talk a little bit about the effect that this pandemic has on our mental health. So I know we've been very concerned so far and very focused on some of the economic trouble that we're having, of course, the health issues that we're experiencing. But mental health is a real issue as well. And so we're going to go through a couple of things. We also encourage our viewers to post comments, questions, if they have any, for our guest speakers. If it's not something that we can answer right now, then we will follow up with a comment or post, etc., and get information out to you. So with that, I am going to turn it over now to Kerri and Bryan, and let's just talk a little bit about some of the effects that this pandemic has had on mental health.
So some of the effects that it's had, most mental health experts believe that we're going to see an increase, and we already have, in anxiety and depression. Substance use is a concern, loneliness, and domestic violence. There's also some concern with the schools closing and children being at home more, that we would see an increase in child abuse possibly as well. As the number of cases of COVID increase, Krisa, what we're seeing is that the associated anxiety is also increasing. And later in the video, we'll talk about some ways to handle that as well. I think what's important is that the mental health part of how this is affecting everyone is as important as the physical part. I know several of our doctors in the community have been on and have been talking about the physical part, which is so important, but we also know that the mental health impact that this is going to have is equally as important.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it seems like that's a little bit more difficult for people to talk about as well.
Yes, I do think so. And one of the things that I hope happens is that some of those struggles that people have are normalized through us talking today and seeing that most likely everyone is going through something, and that it's okay to reach out for help. We have help available in the community, and so I would love it if people took advantage of that.
Absolutely. And I think I don't think there is a single soul really on this planet who is going to say that this pandemic and subsequent economic situation has left them in a more positive mental state than they were before. So I think all of us are feeling something, and maybe some more than others, but it's a little bit easier to say I have a cough than maybe, hey, I'm feeling some anxiety, or even being able to know what you're feeling. So for sure, I hope people do reach out. Can you talk a little bit also about just, so I mentioned subsequent economic situation, but what about that affecting mental health as well?
Well, we've seen a lot of folks that are really concerned about losing their job or being laid off, at least for a while, before they're allowed to come back to work. And that really affects people and the stability that they feel throughout the day. The businesses in town, Kerri and I were talking yesterday, we were really impressed with the way that they have been able to think outside the box. And some of the businesses are selling groceries that are not available at the grocery store, maybe, or they're coming up with different ways of keeping employees on. And they're doing a lot of things through Zoom meetings and that kind of stuff. So the people that are working for them feel secure, and even the ones that have been laid off have been trying to look at it through the lens of, they know it's a temporary layoff, and they know that they will be welcome back later.
And kind of on that note, Bryan, so a lot of employees are working remotely, working from home now with this shelter in place. So what about the effect of working remotely on mental health? Is that a concern at all, or does that play into it?
Well, we have set up a way to do mental health through video or through telephones, different ways that we can do it with people that aren't comfortable coming in the office. Most of our clients have continued to come in. I would tell you more than half, but probably, a little more than half. The video conferencing that I have done, I don't like it as well as being able to see a person in person. It's not as, you don't get as much information watching someone over a video that you do in real life. But it's also a necessity, and we understand that there are some things that we have to learn to do differently. And there is a lot of benefits that can be achieved through doing it remotely instead of doing it in person. And I think a lot of businesses have found that. They're having their meetings virtually instead of in person, and they're finding out that they can do a lot of things that they might not have believed were possible before this.
Absolutely.
And it's funny that you have that experience with that, because I've probably done more video and telephone than the other three here. And what I've noticed is that the first few minutes, it takes a little getting used to, but then it starts rolling, and it's really impressed me. And that's the feedback that I've also gotten from the individuals that I'm talking to, of how comfortable it actually is. And it just kind of rolls like a regular session. And so I've actually enjoyed it, and am thinking about continuing this after the pandemic and being able to reach others. One nice thing is, if you think about people that are dealing with anxiety, sometimes it gets to the point where they're fearful of leaving their home. Even outside of the pandemic, there's a diagnosis called agoraphobia, and they're fearful of leaving their home. And so I've now discovered that this is a way that's accessible, that they can stay at home, they can still have their sessions. For example, my teenagers, they love to take their phone and show me their room. And it's been a different way to connect and see them on a different level. And so I'm seeing some positives from it definitely come as well. And we'll probably continue this. The other thing is, our legislature has been really good. They've lifted all the restrictions. So all insurances are required to reimburse telephone and video sessions, where before, awesome. Yes, I'm very glad that they made that move, and they made it quickly. Yeah, it happened pretty quickly that they were allowing that, so that people that weren't able to leave or were adhering to the social isolation, which at our office we're doing extra measures where it's safe to come in. The people that don't want to come in, the legislature has allowed that their insurance reimburses exactly the same.
And I'd like to add, Krisa, I made my statement based on my clients, and it's really important that we remember the people are individuals, and there are a lot of people. I would agree with Kerri. The teenagers that I have seen are very comfortable doing the video. Some of the adults that I have seen, especially adult men, are not comfortable doing that, but they also have the personality where they don't talk on the phone a lot. And so it just depends on the individual instead of it being a general statement.
Well, and I think something that, and this is something I've noticed, and I'm not trying to enter a counseling session for myself right now. We'll follow up on that later, longer session.
But 7 o'clock, I'll see you.
Okay. But one of the things that I've noticed about myself, and I'm assuming probably some others, is that I miss that human connection that I get from being in the office. We're a close team. For the most part, we like each other. Lisa throws things at Grant sometimes, but other than that, we really get along well. We work well together. There's a good camaraderie there, and we thrive on the energy we get from each other. And so it's funny because the first time that we had, since we've been working remotely, the first time we had our video staff meeting, I think we were all like a little giddy, or at least I was, because I was just so happy to get to see their faces and get to talk, and get to just connect like that again, because that's hard. I think any extrovert out there, but I'm going to assume probably some introverts too, are struggling a little with, being away from the people they kind of thrive on getting energy from, and being around. So I think that kind of adds a layer of complexity as well, just for the business environment.
Very true. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I have missed the most is church. And it's just not the same watching a video of somebody giving a lesson. You need that human contact. And I think that's the same feeling that you're having with your work. We're lucky we get to still come and we still have the contact with a lot of different people that we work with. But it's integral to anyone's self-esteem that you be around some people and you get some feedback.
For real. Yeah. I will say with church, probably the biggest positive takeaway I've had so far in being able to watch the church sermons and online is being able to hear my 3-year-old digest and process that as it's going on, She cracked me up on, and I'm sorry, this is the last time I'm going to go off on it. No, probably not, but maybe the last time I'll go off on a tangent. But we were watching the Easter service sermon, and, and I don't know how much of it she's processing and how much of it she's taking in, but we tried as much as we could to get her to sit down and just watch it with us. And all of a sudden, Drew is doing the children's message, and all of a sudden she said, "He wasn't there in the tomb. He wasn't there." I mean, just, so much excitement, enthusiasm, and it was the sweetest, most adorable thing. And of course, if we had been sitting in church, likely hopefully she would not have had that outburst. But, two, if she had, I would have not responded the same way, because I would have said, shh, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Instead, I was like, "That's right, tell me more." And so that was fun, at least. Okay, so let's move on. What are some of the warning signs of a mental health issue? And I kind of want to address this on warning signs that you can pick up, that us as individuals can pick up in other people, maybe just to try to help them seek help, etc., and also in ourselves. So can you kind of walk me through some of those?
Well, as we've all agreed on already, that we're all going to feel an increase in anxiety during this time. And so there's a term that's called well worry, and well worry is okay. That kind of worry or concern is congruent with the situation. So what we want to talk about is what you look for when it moves into the clinical realm. And that's when you need to reach out and seek help. And so for anxiety, that's when it goes from feeling worried to feeling helpless, or not being able to control or stop thinking about the situation. So let me talk about some of those things specifically for anxiety when it escalates to the point that there need to be some concerns. Like I said, if the thoughts are difficult to control, if they're out of proportion with the actual danger, if those thoughts and feelings start interfering with your daily activities so that you're having them so much that you're not able to do some of your daily activities. One of the things that comes with anxiety, I'm sure y'all have heard of the term panic attack, Krisa. And so a panic attack, that can also come. And that is when, just so that everyone is clear on what the actual definition of a panic attack is, you typically have a racing or pounding heart. You may have sweaty palms. It's difficult controlling your breathing. That may lead to hyperventilation. There may be some trembling. So that is something that's concerning and something to watch for, whether you see it in yourself or other people related to the anxiety. And then also the anxiety can also cause insomnia. And so that would be where your thoughts are keeping you awake at night. You're having to take a much longer time to get to sleep. Your sleep is restless. You wake up feeling unrested, tired, or if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're unable Where went my pen?
Yeah,
Will you get that for me? And you're unable to fall back asleep. The second part, so that's the anxiety part. The second part that I want to talk about that I think we are seeing most frequently, as well as other clinicians on the different blogs and listservs that I'm on, is depression. We're all going to feel a sense of sadness and loss during this time. Things are continually changing. Krisa, like you said and mentioned about your office, and you're missing those interactions. So that is all normal and healthy. What we know is that after a while, if our body stays in the sympathetic nervous system, so the fight or flights, what we call fight or flight, if it stays in that an extended period of time, it increases the cortisol level, which then starts to decrease our serotonin, our norepinephrine, and our dopamine levels, which are neurotransmitters in the brain. And I know I went into a little bit of a science lesson, but it's important for me to let people know that if you're suffering from clinical depression, that doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're not handling something right now. It means that this has gone into affecting your neurotransmitters, and that is something that then you need to seek some extra help for. But in no way, shape, or form is it that you're weak or you're not strong enough to handle this. That is scientifically what happens when those changes happen in our body. And so some of the signs of clinical depression, so this means that those neurotransmitters have decreased in their levels, is that you might see increased tearfulness or crying spells. You might be crying and not know why you're crying. What we call anhedonia, which means that you're unable to find joy in the things that you used to find joy in. They don't bring that same sense of joy or happiness. If there's appetite changes, you see that. Difficulty getting motivated, truly having trouble getting out of bed. Increased social isolation, and not because it's what the government is asking for, but you don't want to see anyone, even in your home. You just want to be by yourself and want others to leave you alone. Excessive tiredness and fatigue, as well as concentration problems. The other thing I'll add is that in teenagers, we know that clinical depression looks different. So if you have a teen in your home and you're looking for these things that I just named, you may not see that. What you're most likely to see are intense mood swings and irritability. And that can also be a sign of depression, which we don't always think of that being a sign of depression, but that can be a sign of what we're talking about, the clinical depression, the changes in our chemicals that you do see in teenagers.
And I'd like to add to that real quick, Krisa.
Yeah.
There is a correlation between staying up at night and sleeping during the day and depression. And a lot of times you hear that depression makes you do that. I'm not sure that one causes the other. But if you notice that you are unable to go to sleep at night, but you're tired and sleeping during the day, that's a real obvious sign. As with the teenagers, tend to sleep later in the morning and they stay up all night long. And we really need to work on that as a family and try to keep a bedtime and a routine, even though there's no school to wake up for.
Excellent. Well, and I think just to kind of reiterate or kind of just go back over it again, I know that with mental health in general, and you guys, I'm sure, battle this on the front line constantly, but there is just a stigma out there sometimes. And I think this is not, hopefully people understand that this is not a time to feel like they can't tell somebody how they're feeling, or they can't admit that they're struggling a little bit with some of this. We're all going to struggle to a certain level, and it doesn't mean that somebody is weak or not as good, or has a problem just because they need help. So I think just to kind of reiterate that again, and something that you said, Kerri, was kind of defining what a true panic attack is. And I think a lot of times some of those terms like panic attacks or even mood swings or bipolar or whatever it may be, those things are thrown around in jest even, and a lot of times without knowing the true definition of what some of those disorders really look like. And so I'm glad that you touched on that as well, so that we know it's not really a funny thing, although we use it sometimes to describe a funny situation.
Right.
That makes sense.
And I want to tag on what you said. I did go over all the clinical signs of when it's clinical depression or clinical anxiety, but we also want to let people know that we're here to talk if you don't have that level, even if you just need to talk through the changes that are occurring. I heard on the radio the other day that the only constant right now is change. And that's difficult to deal with. And so we want to be available for individuals that are having what we talked about earlier, but also just for individuals that, want someone to talk to about everything that's going on. The other thing that I find is that typically people are nervous coming in that first session. I would say they're nervous, but if you'll give it a chance, hands down, I mean, I can't put a percentage on this, but once you come in and sit in the office, within 15 minutes, they love it. Yes, they feel comfortable, they're hooked, and they realize that this isn't it isn't what the movies make it out to be. I don't have a couch that you lay on, and I can't read your mind.
There's no hypnosis, or I don't know, maybe there is, but I'm assuming.
No, we're just talking. And Bryan wanted to talk about some of the things you can do if you do see these signs.
Real quickly, I think the key is if you notice those signs and you need help, we are here. But in most times, people depend on their friends and their family to help them feel better. And when we can't do that now in person, we still need to reach out. I've called my parents more in the last couple of weeks because being able to see them and check on them makes me feel better, makes me feel safer, makes me feel more stable, And so when you need help, sure, we've got professionals that are here to help with that. But also don't lose focus on how important it is to maintain your friendships. And those friendships can be maintained when we can't all meet at the church building or we can't all meet at the office. We still just have to put a little more effort into reaching.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it can even, even a text message or, a meal delivery or whatever it may be, something that doesn't even require coming out of your home, but something you can do for someone can really go a long way also.
It can. And the basis of all anxiety and fear and depression is what you're thinking. If you can change the way you think, you can change the way you feel. And the easiest way to change what you're thinking is share that thought out loud with somebody. And a lot of times just saying it out loud, people go, I don't want to believe that, or I don't believe that, but we assume it's true when we think it. And so
it's amazing how much power we have over our own mind. What about, so this is just, again, my, personal question, but what about the importance of being outdoors, like sunshine specifically?
Really doesn't matter at all, Krisa. Oh, wait, never mind.
This would be
that was a question for Kerri.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this would be a case when social isolation at the office would be nice.
Bryan, you've been sent home.
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. That is one of the things that I have listed, you had asked to have some suggestions for working with our children. And that's one of the things that I'd suggest that I have on here, but as well for just all of us. Fresh air, get out. We know that vitamin D helps, the sunshine helps. Absolutely important. Physical activity. There's been studies that have shown that 3 to 4 times a week, 15 to 20 minutes of moderate activity. That doesn't mean you have to go lift weights. That's walking around your block. That's doing yoga, being active. If you do that 3 to 4 times a week, there's been meta-analysis done to show that that is as effective as an antidepressant on increasing serotonin levels. Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
One of the things I tell my clients is moderate exercise means you're breathing harder than normal, but you can still carry on a conversation. So it's not hard exercise. Go ahead.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Excellent.
Oh, no, I just wanted to interrupt there for a second. I'm sorry.
Well, and it seems like that could be so good for our teenagers, our children as well, to remember they need that. They don't have a PE class scheduled right now, so they need that outdoor time. And shelter in place, is not literally stay inside your home. It's, you can still go in your backyard, your front yard, you can still walk, with your household members. So I can see where that would be very important. And I myself feel so much better after getting some sunshine.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What are some other ways that we can, I hate to use the word prevention because I don't want people to feel like that it's their fault if they do have any issue, but just some healthy, maybe lifestyle choices or some things that we can do. And then maybe any other tips that you have as well.
Well, I'll start, and Bryan's gonna focus on the adults, and I'm gonna focus on what we can do for our children, because I think through my friends, and as well as through Facebook posts and individuals coming in, I think that is a big worry and a big concern. And moms and dads are talking about, okay, maybe moms more than dads, man. Talking about, how can we help our children through this? One of the most, when I was listing some of these things, I think the most important thing is keeping our own anxiety in check. Our kids watch us. We model for our children. And so if we keep our own anxiety in check, then that is going to help them. So that's the number one thing. Also empower our children, give them a sense of control. Try to find situations or instances in their environment, whether it's big or small, where they can exert control. Our world is changing constantly right now. There's a lot of unrest and uncertainty and things we can't control. So one of the best things for that is finding situations or instances that we can control. If your children come to you, so let me move to this next topic. If your children come to you and start talking about COVID or isolation or not being in school, try not to dismiss their concerns. I think one of the things as parents that we naturally want to do is we don't want our children to hurt. And so one of the thoughts that comes to mind is to say, oh, don't worry, it's all okay. Well, that really misses their feelings and it will shut them down from sharing more. And so listen to them, encourage the talking, don't shy away from it. And you want to give information to them. You want it to be age appropriate, but you do want to share information with them. Now, this may be a hot topic. This is about schooling at home. And I have gotten multiple questions about this, and I've seen some heated Facebook debates. So I almost hate to even bring this up because I know
it's an important one.
but I know they're pretty strong about their opinions.
Yes.
So the thing that I want to emphasize is finding a balance between structure and flexibility. This is going to vary for everybody depending on the maturity of your child, the self-motivation of that child, and that child's personality. But if you think about it, we're all having to be flexible. We're all having to change things in our daily routine. So it makes sense that we want some of that flexibility in their day as well. And so I think that, I'm going to be on the fence on this one. I think the healthiest way is to find a balance. You do create some structure, but then at the same time, have some flexibility with that structure.
Yeah, one of the things Kerri also had down was to separate your weeks and your weekdays and your weekends. I'm sorry. But our kids need that break. The school system puts that in, and they put in the PE class and the recess for the younger kids, because you can't expect a younger kid to sustain their attention that long, and they need the breaks on the weekends so that they can rejuvenate. And so I'm not a mom, and I haven't been reading the Facebook text. I'm so thankful my kids are grown and I don't have to do homeschool, but it is very important that we don't just focus on school. The kids need both. Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead, Kerri.
I was just going to say, are y'all having trouble keeping track of what day is what day?
Yes.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my days are blending together, and it's hard to know, is it a Tuesday or is it a Wednesday? And so
is it a weekend?
Exactly. So like Bryan said, that differentiation is super, super important right now. Let's see. I think we've gone over most of this already. Model self-care. Again, as parents, we are the most important models for our children. And so if they see us stay calm, if they see us engage in downtime, relaxation, going for a walk, detaching from our devices, checking on our neighbors, if they see that, that's modeling for them that then they can engage in that. And, Bryan and I were talking yesterday. I think this is such an important, it's important in times like this to look at the positive and to look at opportunities. And this is really a time for an opportunity to teach kindness to our children. There are others that are hurting and struggling, and particularly those that may be alone at home. And so how can we help those individuals? How can we contribute to the world outside of ourselves? It's a great opportunity to talk about that with them and to engage in enacting that with others.
I like even asking my kids, and granted, this isn't in the homeschool curriculum, but I think back to when I was in college and 9/11 happened, and all classes were canceled, I think, for the next 2 days. And when we did go back, I was in a history class, and our instructor said, "Hey, for the remainder of this semester, we're not covering anything that's in the textbook, because you guys are living out history right now, and we're going to talk about what's going on right now." And we did for the remainder of the semester. And so sometimes I think I enjoy asking my kids, like, what do you think is the right way to handle this? Or, ask them some of those questions about our economy. How do we still keep our businesses going strong? How do we, and get their feedback on that. Sometimes they have really good ideas too, by the way. But I think it's good to keep them engaged in what's going on right now, because this is a very monumental time in history. Someday their kids, their grandkids are going to learn about this time period. And so I think they need to be aware that this is a big deal. This isn't, Coronacation. This is a really big, significant event in our history of the world, actually. So anyway, I just think it's also good to keep them engaged in the relevant, like, current events also, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I do have to tell this part. Sorry to interrupt, but my kids are going to kill me for saying this. But what we've done is we've asked them to do a coronavirus. And so, our kids they watch YouTube. They see these people do the YouTube videos. They know how to do this. So we're having them a minimum of 2 minutes. But the funny thing is all of them have gone over 2 minutes. Like, I think they enjoy it more than they're letting on. But we have them doing a coronavirus. And so they tell at the end of the day, with the phone and doing the video, what the day was like, because you're right. This is unprecedented times. And I'm hoping that will be something that they'll be glad they did as they have their own children and can look back on that.
I think that's really neat. Just getting them involved and engaged in that way, and something they can look back and remember. I love that.
And one of the things you said that I thought was really important, Krisa, is we don't need to tell our kids how we're going to fix this. As parents, we can admit, I don't know how businesses are going to change. Let's talk about it instead of I have the answers for that. It allows your kids to recognize that you are dealing with your fear, and admitting a fear doesn't always increase their fear. Admitting a fear but not talking about it increases their fear.
Yes.
Does that make sense? But we tend to use something like this as a time that we watch TV or we don't do anything productive as a family. And the key that I would like to mention about families is this is a time when we can teach our kids kindness. We can teach our kids how to deal with a problem. And I Googled, before we got on here, I Googled outdoor activities during the quarantine. And it took me 0.47 seconds to come up with 29 million different ideas. So
are you going to read all of those? Because that seems like a long time.
3 were repeats. So there's really only 28,990,000. No, but outdoors is so important. And our kids listen to us when we're outdoors much more than when they're on the phone or when they're watching the TV. Just to get your kids out and spend some time and look at this as we can build a marriage, we can build our family relationships. This is a scary time, but it's also a time that can be used very productively. And if we don't take advantage of it, next month we're going to be back at work and we're going to be back in our routine and we're going to wish that we had.
So we have a great question from my friend Lindsay, who's watching our Facebook Live, and I can honestly say I can relate to this very much. And in fact, Bryan, you may be disappointed in us for this, but Dan sent a text out to someone and said, I think I know the first fatality of coronavirus, and it's going to be my marriage. And it's a lot of time, a lot of time together, so much time. And so anyway, the funny part about that story is that the person he sent it to responded back and said, well, just so you know, we have a really nice guest room, ... We're Krisa. So I packed a bag, I'm out. No, I'm just kidding. But Lindsay asked about how to deal with a husband that is taking too long finishing a kitchen remodel, and you have no kitchen for 3 weeks, and your children have gone feral from eating snacks and lack of bathing. And I have a few of those feral children who probably need a bath and have eaten snacks. So how do kids even eat that much? It's amazing to me, but seriously, I don't know. They can eat all day long every day. It's crazy. So any advice for dealing with a husband when you're trying to raise children and you're in your home? And I'm going to infer a little bit there, Lindsay, and I hope that's okay. But, some of that I think is just spending a lot of time together in one place. Any advice on that one?
Well, Kerri and I are here together today because we both have spouses that work here that we needed some time away from. And so alone time doesn't help. And sometimes you may need to send your husband to the store and not go with him. You know, I would recommend be very patient with husbands. Okay. Kitchens are very difficult and husbands are working very hard, and you should be very patient and kind to anyone that's working on your kitchen at this time.
And
But
sometimes husbands could maybe take the kids fishing all day,
they could,
or something like that too.
hmm
Yes.
hmm and it's we I remember one time we were putting new flooring down in our home, and we took all the furniture out of the living room and we did the floor in the living room, and then we moved one room into the living room and did that room. We spent like 6 months without a living room, and it is very stressful. It would be so much worse now when you're home 24 hours 7 days a week.
And your kids are home 24 hours, 7 days a week. I mean,
Yes.
God.
Yes. And it does take a long time if you're doing something like a remodel of your kitchen. The best advice I would give you is if you can, take some time away. Take your kids and go fishing, and don't spend all of your time working so that when you're stressed out at the end of the day, you're stuck in a home with no food and nowhere to get away from the family that you've been dealing with all day. It's going to take you longer to get the remodeling done, but go through a drive through and get some food instead of just feeding them potato chips. But you do the best that you can, and you recognize we are all stuck in this together. And so even though your husband may be the one that's making you mad, you're stuck with him. You can't leave right now. The people may have a guest room, but you can't go over there.
My plans are ruined.
And do tell Dan he's welcome to call me anytime he needs a place to stay.
I'll pack a bag for him and have it ready when he gets home.
Okay.
Really though, I mean, I think that has probably been one of the things just, that I've experienced in my, talking with some of my friends. But it's, you always want more time with your kids and your husband, and when you work a lot, you always wish you had more time with them. And then when you have it and your kids aren't in school, and so they're home all the time too, and especially for those who are still working, that can add some stress, I think, to a family environment for kids and parents. I don't think my kids like to be around me this much either, for the record.
I've had 2 teenage daughters that both mentioned they needed time away from their dad, and their mom was more than willing to help them get that. So no, it's not that we always want to spend more time together.
Yeah. I'll have to admit, so my safe place when that happens around my house, I love yoga. Yoga has been a saving grace for me. It grounds me, it settles me. And so I have to practice it in my bathroom right now because the studio is closed. We can't go places. But they know that when mom goes up and closes the bathroom door and gets her yoga mat out, don't come in. Don't. Like,
it's my time.
My time, and I need it. And so I think that for all of us, we have to find that one thing, and it may have to be something outside, that you go work on a project outside, or that one of you takes the kids, we keep using the example fishing. One of you takes the kids fishing, and just to be in your home by yourself for a little bit, it's amazing, how that can reset you.
For sure. And just want to throw this out there because he's probably watching, and I don't want him to, call me out on this later. But Dan really did take the kids fishing last weekend, all 3 of them, and it was really great. So, and they had a blast. They had so much fun. So anyway, just wanted to, I got to give him those kudos when he deserves them. So.
Go, Dan.
Yeah.
Good job, Dan. And I think he's going to do it like every weekend from here on out. So just going to put that out there.
That could be much together time for him.
It's one thing to take the older 2, but when he takes the 3-year-old too, that's when I'm like, wow, good job, husband.
That's
like,
really good.
Yeah, big deal. So,
and
well, what other? Oh, I'm sorry, Bryan.
We forget that. Dads forget that moms need breaks from little kids. If you can leave teenagers at home and mom can go in the bathroom and they'll leave them alone. But 3-year-olds go in the bathroom with mom. They don't care if the door's shut.
Or they stand at the door and stick their fingers underneath and, say, Mom, I can see your feet. I know you're in there. Oh, that's great. Well, what other tips do you have for us? And before we jump off, I also want you to let us know how to contact you. So if somebody does want to reach out, and like you said, even if it's just to talk, or if it's, Dan just wrote, "Don't threaten me with a good time." I take that as a yes. Thanks. Even if it is that somebody just needs to talk, or maybe they're not sure why they're feeling sad, or maybe scared, or whatever those feelings are. But I know I've talked to both of you before and have really enjoyed it. That's a weird word to use, honestly, but have felt like it was a very positive experience. And so I would like to encourage anyone who just needs somebody to talk to reach out. So will you tell us the best way for people to get in contact with you all?
Okay, so our office phone is 549-2259. And so that will be answered, 5 days a week. You can also leave a voicemail if we're not here. We have email. Maybe, Lisa, is that something that we can attach at the bottom, or the show notes? We can attach the email as well. Our office cell phone, you have that memorized?
No.
We can put that on there too.
Okay, I will send that. And so some people feel better texting. So you can always text, and Kathy will communicate with you through text. And I think this is a misconception that I just want to clear up. You don't need a doctor's order or a doctor's referral to come in. I mean, all it is you calling, saying that you want to set up an appointment, and we make that happen. There was one other thing I was going to say about that. Oh, we do have a website that is down right now, which is the absolute worst time. I mean, we had all these ideas, and we were going to post self-help. Don't get us started. This has been a stressful topic. We were going to post ideas and self-help and all of that, and people could contact us and find out information about where we went to school and that sort of thing. But that's
the Russians hijacked it.
Yeah, it's a true story. It's a true story. So, yes. So our office number is probably the easiest way. 940-549-2259. And just to, maybe we can post the brochure too, to let people know that there are 5 clinicians here. There's myself and Brandon. We're both clinical psychologists. We have Bryan and Andrea Ray. So 2 married couples, which is kind of unique. They are both LPCs. And then we also have Sadie, who is an LPA. So we have 5 individuals, and we want to match you with someone that you would feel most comfortable with. And Kathy's really good about talking you through that as well.
Excellent. Well, anything else you want to leave, put out there before we go?
I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Just stay calm.
Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. I know y'all are busy. Your time is super valuable. So thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us and share with our community in this way. And I also want to make sure and thank Pete Clark with Texas Made Security for making sure that we don't have any technical glitches and that we're able to stream this to our Facebook page. So thank you again, Pete. We really appreciate your help as well. And I hope everybody has a great day. Go get some sunshine. Hopefully it'll be sunny today. Fingers crossed. Not too cold and not too hot. Go get some sunshine, get some exercise in, and let us know how we can help. Thank y'all.
Sounds great. Thanks, Krisa.
Thank you.